Welcome to South Carolina Live at the Voice of College Football, episode 40. I'm your host, Walker Gaskins. And before we talk about anything, I just ask that you please like, share, subscribe, follow if you're watching on X, subscribe if you're watching on the channel. Do both, please. If you're here, it's clear you love Gamecock football content, and it just helps me grow the Voice of College Football Network as well as my own channel. So I'd appreciate if you do that. And also, after you're finished watching this, if you'd like to check out last episode with the Big Spurs, Hale McGranahan, that was a great episode. I was honored to have him come on. And then before we start talking about everything, I'm trying to get quicker with my intros, but I just wanted to ask to send your prayers out for Lou Holtz. Although I didn't live through his time coaching in Columbia, it's easy to see the positive mark he's left on this program and the joy he brought to the South Carolina fan base. I've heard nothing except good about him and his time in Columbia and who he is as a person. So obviously I believe he's in hospice care right now. So I ask that you keep him in your thoughts and send some prayers his way. But getting into it now, we have some staff movements that have happened within the past week or so, maybe a little bit over a week, that I want to discuss here with you. First of all, Jordan Dove, the assistant defensive line coach, he was reported to have taken a job with Kansas State, and this is true. Kansas State did confirm it. They added him to their coaching bio on their website. And the thing about Dove is he spent quite a good bit of time with this program. He spent 3 seasons here. Just to run through a little bit about his story with the Gamecocks, he spent 2 seasons here as a graduate assistant and was an equipment room intern. And then he actually worked his way up to be promoted to assistant defensive line coach in the 25 season. And eventually, following Travion Robertson's injury right before the season started, or right early into the season, he became the interim defensive line coach during the season. And honestly, I wish him nothing but the best of luck. I think he did a great job here. He led a defensive line that was not only missing their primary coach, but also heading into last season, a lot of people thought there would be a big step back that was going to happen with this defense and also this interior defensive line. You lose guys like Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders, Boogie Huntley, and I think a lot of people thought defensive line the interior side was going to be the biggest weakness heading into the season outside of maybe the secondary. And although they did take a step back, they didn't take as big of a step back. So just congrats to him for what he did in 2025. Completely understandable move. Robertson has come back, and the job at Kansas State is his first opportunity to be the primary coach for the defensive tackles. So best of luck to Jordan Dove. He joins their new coaching staff there, new head coach Colin Klein, defensive coordinator Jordan Peterson, and defensive line coach Buddy Wyatt, who's a veteran among the defensive line coaching community, but he'll actually be focusing on the defensive ends. So best of luck to Jordan Dove, certainly. But also on the offensive side as well, we've had some staff movements. According to NFL's network, Tom Pelissero, and I believe Cutter's father confirmed this as well, Davis Cutter will become the assistant wide receivers coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. And just if you don't know who he was, he's not a popular name in the coaching staff among just the regular fan base. He was the assistant quarterbacks coach in 2025 for South Carolina. And after Mike Shula departed, he helped assist Mike Furry, who became the interim play caller. And I wish him nothing but the best. Coaching at NFL is a great opportunity. And I think this is something that might have just been a mutual kind of thing. Like they're not too upset about it because of how the quarterbacks performed, specifically Lenore Sellers in 2025. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring in anybody, and if they do, who they'll bring in to help run that quarterback room, because I think quarterback play was a source of a lot of frustration for many South Carolina fans last year. Now, getting away from the staff movements, I want to talk about the program as a whole in college football as a whole for a second. And my question for you is, are Power 4 non-conference clashes dead? The games where it's not your rival, but it's another Power 4 opponent. You've been waiting. It was announced it was an upcoming game, maybe 8 years before, 5 years before. You've been looking forward to it, and now it's finally in the regular season. Are those dead, or are they about to be dead soon? And how this relates to the Gamecocks, just recently, last week, the state came out, and eventually it was reported by other sources, but they were first on it, that the Virginia Tech and South Carolina home-and-home series was canceled. It was set for 2034 and 2035, so it was far off, but it was going to happen. And similarly, if we all remember, last year, the Miami home-and-home series was canceled. I mean, if it wasn't canceled, we were set to play play in Williams-Brice against the Hurricanes this upcoming season. And then in 2027, we would eventually go to Hard Rock. And my question for why it's dead is because not that they're not entertaining. I think those are some of the most entertaining games there are. We all saw Ohio State and Texas, Michigan and Oklahoma, which I'll bring up the two of those teams as an example in a second to my other point. But the reason it's dead is not because of a lack of entertainment. People want to see these type of clashes between different Power 4 conferences. But the question is, what's the incentive for the teams to play now? What is the incentive? Because certainly in the SEC terms, it's disappointing that South Carolina canceled the Virginia Tech, or was a part of the reason in canceling the Virginia Tech series and the Miami series, but it's completely understandable. Disappointing as a fan, understandable as from the program's perspective, because you're already playing 9 conference games, 9 SEC games. It's tough. Everybody knows that. Other conferences who also play 9 games are thinking the same thing. So we play 9 Power 4 opponents just from our conference, as well as Clemson every year. That's 10 Power 4 opponents every year. So it gets to the point where if you're going to play at another game, like if we kept Miami this year, if we played Miami this year instead of Towson or Kent State or whoever we brought in as the extra opponent to replace them, what's the reward for playing 11 Power 4 games? What's the reward? Now, my question to you, and what's the reward, is because we know how beneficial it can be if you win all of those games, right? I mean, it's a surefire way into the college football playoffs, into the top of the rankings, top 10, top 5 rankings nationally. But if you just lose a couple of those games, a few of those games, then all of a sudden it completely shifts, right? My point this being is in 2024, after Gamecocks finished 9-3, right, there was a lot of argument, well, why should SMU get in at 10-2? Look at who they played compared to the likes of South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss. Yes, they had one extra loss, but look at the quality of record. Look at the strength of schedule. Strength of schedule is a buzzword for probably 2 months after the final CFP decisions came out in 2024. And then the same thing with here. Like you look at, I just bring in the 4 teams I mentioned earlier. When Michigan played Oklahoma, they went to Norman. Oklahoma beat them. What was Michigan's final ranking, if you're asking for the CFP rankings? Their final ranking was 18th in the country. Now, I certainly don't think, considering everything you gave their schedule, they should have made it in. I'm not here arguing that Michigan should have made it into the college football playoff. But my question is, what if they didn't play Oklahoma and they played a smaller team, a non-Power 4 opponent? That's one extra win, and all of a sudden, things are looking a little bit different with the conversation for the Wolverines. I think you're starting to track what I'm saying here. Same thing with Texas. Okay, there was a big thing last year. Texas fans were saying, they're punishing us for losing to Ohio State. No, and I've said this multiple times, they punished you for losing to Florida in such an ugly manner. That had nothing to do with the loss to Ohio State. But it begs the question, though, what if Texas didn't play Ohio State? What if they played, for lack of better terms, cupcake season opener? How would the conversation have changed to that ugly loss from Florida if they were 10-2 rather than 9-3? And that's my point. Why, as the commissioners, Greg Sankey, as all these commissioners of Power 4 conferences, or the athletic directors and the presidents of these universities, what's the incentive to play these games? Because obviously it's great when the fans want it. And I think we all know that the fans want to see games like this. We want to see these epic Power Four non-conference clashes and matchups. It's some of the best games we get in the sport. But you have to think about it from a team perspective. And what is putting the team in the best position to make the CFP, to go win a national championship? And currently, right now, there's very little incentive to do that if your goal is to win a national championship and have the best regular season possible. So that's my statement on just college football in general. I think it's very disappointing to where we've got to that. I've always said since the 12-team CFP has come out, I think we need a bigger emphasis on the strength of schedule. I think whenever you start getting into past the top 10 to 8 teams, to 10 teams to 12, and continuing on, I think the more we focus on record and how the numbers look on your end-of-season schedule record than who you actually played, the manner in which you lost those games, and the talent you had to go up to week in and week out, and how your schedule was laid out. I think we're going to continue to see games in series like South Carolina and Miami, like South Carolina and Virginia Tech. We're going to continue to see those dying out. And it's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate not just because it's sad, not just because it's a loss of entertaining games by no doubt. We all would look forward to see them. But it's also hard because you can't blame the commissioners of the conferences. You can't blame the programs and the athletic directors and the university presidents and the head coaches, because their job is to put their team in the best position to win. I would blame the College Football Playoff Committee and this culture we have where you are what your record says you are. I think that's the problem with college football, and it's just going to continue to hurt games like this. So got a little worked up there. I apologize. I'm very passionate about that. It's very disappointing to see. But reining it back in for the Gamecocks, how are we doing on the recruiting trail? It's been a busy month or two. It's been a busy couple months. First, the transfer portal. Well, before that, we had the coaching searches, transfer portal. And then lately, it's been kind of recruiting buzz and recruiting season and getting visits in and getting visits scheduled and offers. So before I say anything, if you want up-to-date by the day, by the hour, and oftentimes by the minute updates on who's South Carolina offering, who's taking a visit, who's attending junior day or junior camps, then follow me on X. It's in the corner, WG_Sports_CFB. It's relevant, up-to-date, and important Gamecock information, especially regarding the recruiting trail as of right now. So the first thing I wanted to talk about this Gamecock recruiting trail is I kind of want to start on a positive note. It's actually pretty positive, but I want to start on a little bit of a celebratory note. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up this article from Hale McGranahan of 24/7 Sports. Gamecocks closed 2026 recruiting cycle with 9 top 247 prospects. So obviously they've got 9 of them, which is actually a very significant portion of this recruiting class. I've been saying on record, I've really liked this recruiting class, especially to where we were as a staff on National Signing Day. The guys we were able to bring in when we weren't sure who our offensive line coach was going to be, who our offensive coordinator was going to be, running backs coach, I think it's very impressive. And I think that these impressive guys who we brought in are just continuing to make a name for themselves in the state and across the country. So first player is Darius Gray. Obviously, he's probably the most well-known name in this recruiting class. The lone 5-star signing for the Gamecocks, according to 24/7 Sports. And he's number 15 in the country. So no doubt Shane Beamer's brought in 5-star guys. And I can focus on, how impressive it is about how many 5-stars he brought in under his tenure. But one thing that has always been an issue has been the coaching when it comes to the offensive line. It seems like we couldn't have the coaching, especially under Lonnie Teasley. But there have also been times in Gamecock history where it felt like we just didn't have the talent, whether you can also want to focus on how that reflects on the recruiting for the coaches. There's been a lot of times where it's either been the coaching that's the issue, the talent that's the issue, or both. And that's why historically South Carolina has not had a very good offensive line. But you bring in a guy like Randy Clements, a veteran of the system who's worked with Kendall Browse before. As of now, from the perspective of February 2nd, 2026, I feel good about the coaching. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to be massively successful with the offensive line, but as of February 2nd, 2026, I feel good about it. And also feel good about this talent. I mean, we've already talked about the transfer portal. If you're looking for some recap with the portal, I encourage you to go watch last episode with Hale McGranahan. But this recruiting that we brought in, some staple guys like Darius Gray, if everything goes how it should be, which as of right now, I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, this guy's going to be a staple and anchor for this offensive line in upcoming seasons. So I'm just very impressed with the recruiting that we've done, and specifically on the offensive line. But you also bring in some talented guys from other positions as well. Julian Walker from Dutch Fork High School, number 1 prospect in the state of South Carolina, number 6 ranked edge in the class. I've seen this guy play a few times. I've seen this guy wreck offensive lines. This dude his presence is felt on the field, and sometimes it's either the thing about him, it's either he's getting the sacks, he's making the plays, or he's bringing so much attention to him that guys on the other side of the defensive line can go make their money as well. So Julian Walker is certainly a guy who I could possibly see even getting some snaps. I don't think he'll be a starter this year. I'm not going to go as far to say that, but I could see him possibly getting some snaps in 2026. But also a little bit in the secondary as well, Jazavian Currents, very talented safety. I really like him as a player. Currently the number 2 player in the Palmetto State per their 24/7 Sports rankings. I think this guy could easily be one of the next Torian Gray greats, one of the easy next stars under Clayton White. I'm really looking forward to Jazavian Currents. But also you look at Aiden Harris. He's jumped up from 123, according to 24/7 Sports national rankings, to 85. You look at another defensive tackle, Noah Clark from North Carolina, finish at number 138 in the recruiting class. Another defensive back, Koski Barnes, number 143 ranked recruit in the country. So, I mean, we're bringing in a ton of blue chip talent. And I believe I brought this up with Hale McGranahan last episode. I think we have the highest blue chip percentage on our team since 2014. And I think with this new coaching staff we brought in, it's only going to do numbers for our performance in the upcoming seasons. But one more guy, I'm going to mention Zion Giles, who I think is going to be a good offensive lineman here. I think he should have got a 5th star. Really looking forward to him. He's a Hemingway, South Carolina native, and Sequel Patterson, who I think is going to be a very athletic, a very physical guy we're going to see at the wide receiver position. But Landon Duckworth, I want to just mention him. If you haven't been following South Carolina in the offseason or just his recruitment process in general, he committed to the Gamecocks quite a while ago. He decommitted, and then he recommitted to South Carolina. And he stuck with the Gamecocks throughout the season, and then right before he signed and National Signing Day, there was a late push from Lane Kiffin and the new LSU under Kiffin, and there was some serious doubt I saw online on social media that he was actually going to flip, but he stayed with the Gamecocks. He committed and recommitted to us, so I was sure hoping so after all of that drama. But I think Landon Duckworth, I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback in this class for a reason. Jackson, Alabama native, and I've watched some highlights on him. I'm not an X's and O guy. I'm not going to try to be a recruiting analyst here and tell you who you should bring in and a talent guy. But this dude, with the right path at South Carolina, with the right development, I could see him easily, possibly in the future, starting after Carter Woods. Let's say Lenore Sellers leaves after this upcoming year. Let's just, for the point of the conversation, say Carter Woods is the next quarterback, or whoever it is. I think Landon Duckworth can be the next guy up. So I'm really looking forward to this recruiting class. 9 prospects from the South Carolina Gamecocks are in the top 247. And I think it's nothing but good. It's nothing but good. It's good news, and it feels weird, and I've said this the past couple episodes, it feels weird with how much good news we've been getting this offseason, because of the fact that we just finished 4-8. It doesn't feel like we just finished 4-8. This feels like the offseason we'd have if we just finished 9-4, like we did in 2024. So it's very good to see. It's very promising, I think, and it makes you feel a little bit better with about how well this staff in Columbia can push back and do things like we just read in this article, despite what just happened in 2025. But another thing I want to focus on is the class of 2027. Now, I'm going to tell this you straight. We have a massive recruiting weekend, June 19th to June 21st. It's going to be a huge weekend for the Gamecocks in the terms of the class of 2027. Now, if you're asking, well, why? We're about to get into why. Here are some of the very talented blue chip guys, some of the best prospects in the 27 class who are coming to Columbia that weekend. Firstly, 5-star interior offensive lineman Maxwell Hiller. If you don't know much about him, 6'5", 300 pounds, number 4 player in the nation, number 1 interior offensive lineman, and number 1 player in Pennsylvania per 24/7 Sports. That right there is the most sought-after offensive lineman prospect in next year's class. And what I thought was really interesting is he's been visited South Carolina. I believe he visited for the Clemson game. They've been working on trying to get him for quite a while now. But also, this was Hiller's first official visit planned. So I think it's just not a promise of anything that will come to fruition. But I think it's just interesting to note, put in the back of your mind that the Gamecocks were able to land an official visit first from Hiller. Now, next interior offensive lineman is 4-star Nate Carson, Irmo High School native, or Irmo High School player. Irmo, South Carolina, if you don't know, it's very close to the University of South Carolina. He's visiting that weekend as well. And if you don't know about him, 6'4", 270 pounds, currently ranked as the number 161 player in the 27 class, number 15 offensive lineman in the nation, and number 3 player in South Carolina. So Shane Beamer's always put a focus on winning the recruiting battle in the state of South Carolina. If you grab a guy like Nate Carson, who I've seen play multiple times, who's fast, strong, physically smart, he has everything you want in an offensive lineman, great potential. I'm really excited about him no matter where he goes. I think that's just another chip to add, another thing to add to your resume as a recruiter for the Gamecocks, because this guy is very talented. And the thing about him is he lives right down the street from the University of South Carolina. I mean, he's probably 20, 25 minutes with somewhat bad traffic away from the University of South Carolina in their football program. I mean, this is a guy who you can visit. You can put a lot of resources in-state guy, growing up with the Gamecocks, and there's other schools after him, schools like Tennessee, Alabama, because they recognize his talent. So Nate Carson is a name to watch, I would believe, and it's certainly a priority target for the Gamecocks as well as Hiller. But another 4-star offensive lineman, offensive tackle Junior Sanders, 6'6", 270-pound offensive tackle, number 308 player in the 27 class, number 32 offensive tackle in the nation, number 6 player in Virginia per the 24/7 composite rankings, just in case you put priority in those numbers. And this is another talented, blue chipper, high-profile offensive lineman coming into Columbia that weekend. Another guy, 3-star offensive lineman Brady Hull, number 9 player in Kentucky, 6'3", 280 pounds. All of these guys have significant size, and they're only in high school. Wait till they get to college and they go through the strength programs and the conditioning programs they have at the collegiate level. So this offensive line it's going to be a big swing for these offensive line prospects June 19th through June 21st. I think it's going to be something that Gamecock fans should be crossing their fingers for that weekend. Make sure you knock on wood whenever you can that weekend, because that's going to be a big weekend for the 27 class. But we're not just bringing in some offensive linemen that weekend as well. 4-star running back Trey Segura, Duncan, South Carolina native, in-state guys, growing up with the Gamecocks around him and his culture, and just around him as being an in-state guy. Goes at Burns High School, if any of y'all know know where Burns is. 5'10", 197-pound back, currently ranked as the number 109 player in the 27 class, number 5 running back in the nation, and number 2 player in the state of South Carolina. Once again, getting back to that point, winning the recruiting battle in South Carolina. We have some dogs in the Palmetto State, and if we can win here, then we're certainly bringing in the right talent into this program. But also on the defensive side, and this is the last guy I'm going to bring up to this point, who I think this is the last person I think is known to be visiting that weekend, is 4-star edge Frederick Ards III, 6'5", 225-pound edge out of Orlando, Florida. Currently is a top 100 prospect, I think number 96 in the 27 class, number 14 edge in the nation, number 11 player in Florida per the composite rankings of 24/7 Sports. So I know I just went through a lot of names, a lot of information, but my point here is, yeah, there's a pretty strong focus on this offensive line during this jam-packed weekend. But when you look at the other guys to bring in, like Trey Segura, who I want to go see next year in his senior season, like Frederick Ards III, who's one of the best players in the state of Florida. I mean, I think a year from now, 6 months from now, a couple seasons from now, when we get back into the nitty-gritty of recruiting and the recruiting trail, I think this is going to be a thing we can look back on and think, wow, that was a huge swing by this Gamecock staff for the 27 recruiting class. Now, will that swing come to fruition, and will we see these guys commit? Only time will tell. But I think this is going to be a very important weekend with the amount of guys we're bringing in. But no doubt, Darren Usher, Jessica Jackson, Sam Survey, and the recruiting staff in Columbia in general will do an excellent job. I think they've always been one of my favorite parts of this Gamecock program. They've been great recruiters. They've been doing excellent things. We've seen it this offseason. And I'm looking forward to that weekend. I'm very much looking forward to that weekend. I think you should be too. Now, another point I want to make about the recruiting trail is just kind of pivot for a second is, recruiting is going to be a little different. This change went into effect this season, or heading into this season. That's why we see it now. It's going to be a little different because of the scholarship limit for college football teams. So if you haven't been caught up, you think, well, what do you mean? It's 85 is the max amount of players you can have on scholarship. Well, they've they updated it. 105 is the new limit. So that's 20 more players, 20 more scholarship spots you can put on your team, which, I mean, just stating the obvious here, it brings a lot of flexibility, whether it's injuries that could happen, depth. I'm bringing in an extra scholarship guys and being able to promise that scholarship, I think it's huge for just college football teams in general, even if it means, eliminating a little bit of the walk-ons for college football. I definitely understand that argument and wanting to keep the tradition of walk-ons and what that means for programs and players. But definitely I think it's going to be noticeable in the recruiting show. You're going to be bringing in more people at certain positions where you think, oh, well, in years past, we might not have brought in as many guys as we did at the position, such as long snapper, for example. I mean, Will Gunter made a good post about this on X. In the past, we don't bring in 1 to 2 more long snappers every year. But now with the scholarship limit going up by 20 to 105, things like this can change. And speaking of long snapper, we just signed one. Matthew O. from Buford, Georgia, goes to Buford High School, just signed with the Gamecocks, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and he joins long snappers Kyler Farrow and Western Carolina transfer came in this offseason, Emmett Rhodes, at the long snapper position group. So a little bit about Matthew O. is 5'10", 220-pound long snapper from Buford, Georgia, like I said. And he picked South Carolina over a couple other schools, such as Duke, Air Force, Samford, Middle Tennessee. And although there's no official On3 ranking for him or 24/7 Sports ranking or stars around him, per the Coles ratings, which focus a lot on like special teams, he's a 5-star long snapper, number 3 player in the nation. You go to the Coles ratings website and look at his rating and everything, and there's nothing but that review about him makes you very excited based off of what you read about his potential at South Carolina. And he's actually set to participate in the Under Armour All-American game upcoming very soon. So much needed talent, I think, when you bring in a guy like Matthew O, when you bring in a guy like Emmett Rhodes, for this special teams aspect of Gamecock football. Now, you may be asking, well, what's different? Why does it matter that we're bringing in another long snapper? Why does it matter that we're bringing in another kicker like Upton Belafont, who I think is going to be a great guy if he wins the position battle here? I think he probably will if I had to make an educated guess. Well, I like to put a focus on special teams as one, not only because of Beamer ball, right, but also we've seen the highs and lows from a great special teams or the lack thereof. We all remember Xavier Leggett's 100-yard kickoff return, or seeing Kai Kroger's punts and throws and for touchdowns, and Mitch Jeter and Parker White's excellent kicking. We also seen Alex Herrera's missed kicks against LSU, Alabama, Illinois. We saw muff punts felt like a thing that just popped up a little bit out of nowhere last year. A lot of muff punts. So I think with special teams, I think it's something that is overlooked, even in this era of college football, because heading into 2025, Shane Beamer said this, and this is one of his big concerns. We had a new kicker, long snapper, basically every position group you can name with special teams was a new guy, except for punter with Kai Kroger. And we saw a little bit about how that affected this team. Now, I'm not about to say that the special teams is the reason we went 4-8. Absolutely not. But we saw how it contributed in ways and sometimes put us in bad spots or put the defense in bad spots at times. And I think it's just I like what Matthew O is as a prospect, what he could do at Carolina, but I like the talent and the whole tone towards the special teams in this offseason, whether it's the portal or the recruiting trail in general, because I value as much as I think they value, and the teams who really focus on special teams, I value special teams as much as they do. I think it's an underrated and overlooked side of the ball, even to this day. And I really like what Matthew O is going to bring in. So I know it's only been 30 minutes. It's a slightly shorter episode today. Have to wrap it up a little bit short. But that was South Carolina Live, episode 40 at the Voice of College Football. But I just want to take a moment to just talk about the direction of this program, or the direction of this channel, just for a little bit. Obviously, the transfer portal has been closed. Recruiting trail is basically wrapped up for the Gamecocks. And it's around a month before spring ball starts opening it up and really begins. So during this time, I know a lot of people might, just disengage football, focus on baseball. I think baseball is on in 10 days, Gamecock baseball, focus on women's basketball. Not sure if you want to focus on the men's basketball right now, focus on other sports. But here at South Carolina, at the Voice of College Football, there is no offseason. We'll be focused and determined to keep covering Gamecock content. And what we're going to do is we're going to be breaking down and looking into a lot of these different position groups as we head into spring practice. Really take a bigger dive into the wide receiver position, into some of the depth at quarterback, who could be quarterback two, some of these new interior defensive line guys we brought in, and guys we brought in the 26 class, like we were talking about earlier. So there's going to be a lot of analysis. I'm going to try to get some guys onto the show for y'all so we can have some discussions about Gamecock football. But if you want to see that, if you're really invested into Gamecock football, I encourage you not just like the video, don't just share it with a friend who loves Gamecock football, but subscribe to the channel. Follow me on X, WG_Sports_CFB. It's in the bottom, I think, left of the camera. It only helps me grow my channel, only helps me grow my account, but also gives you Gamecock football content, which if you're here, thank you to all of those who are watching right now. It's clear you care about that. So that was South Carolina Live, episode 40 at the Voice of College Football. I'm your host, Walker Gaskins. Have a good night and go Gamecocks.